caning causes aggression. So that's really concerning that we're now using aggression to foster further aggression. Incidentally, 80% of child abuse cases start with corporal punishment going bad. I meant to discipline and then I get carried away.
Hello, I'm Aarathi. I'm from EveryChild.SG. And today we're here to talk about sparing the rod, whether it spares the child or whether it should actually spare the brain. There are lots of talk in news about discipline in homes and schools and what looks like normal parenting, but it's actually violent. There are harsh words, there are rough hands. The bruises can't be seen, but the cycle is never ending. And so today I brought with me Sophia, Dr. Amrit, and Liling to talk a little bit about where this can go and what we should be doing about this. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves and then we'll kick off with the discussion. Sophia, you go first.
Yes, I am Sophia Klopp. I'm a positive discipline parent educator. I work with Liling. We are co-directors of Chapter 0 Singapore. We work with parents and educators in building that respectful relationships with children within the families and within the school.
Hi, I'm Amrit and I'm a clinical psychologist. I've been in this game for about 17 years. I volunteer with Every Child. I think I've been working with both adults and children, and this is a really important space to be involved in because I don't think anybody is speaking for the children like Every Child, and so I'm happy to be part of this conversation.
Hi, I'm Liling, and like Sophia already introduced, I'm also co-director of Chapter 0 since 2018, and I run workshops for parents and educators, mainly to share more about mindful communication and how to support children in co-regulating.
So let's start with the obvious, okay? Why are corrective measures, why do they always seem to be punitive in schools and also in homes? So maybe take one and then the other.
Well, I think when you say the words corrective and punitive, right, already tells us something.
Yeah.
That something has gone wrong and an action needs to be done quickly, right? So there's a lot of things going on in families and in schools wherein there's urgency to act, to do something about it. I don't think that parents and educators mean to be punitive, but it's a lot of things that we grew up with also as well. That becomes familiar. So when we have that urgency, that stress, we tend to resort to things that we have done before or we have experienced before that we think could work at the moment, and that resorts to punitive measures. That is not always helpful.
Yeah, I would agree. I think when you speak to parents who say they've had to use corporal punishment, who resorted to corporal punishment, a lot of the time what they're saying is, I was at my wit's end. I was so stressed. I just can't get this boy to do his homework. I'm at my, I've had it up to here. I've got work and then my boss is after me and then these kids just won't listen. It almost comes from a place of desperation, frustration, and I think really dysregulation on the part of the parents. So we'll talk more, but it's important to understand that a lot of parents are coming to this place from their own distress and from a place where they're throwing up their hands and I don't know what else to do.
Yeah, that resonates with me a lot. I think oftentimes when children exhibit or display behaviors that are unacceptable, it's because they are in a stress cycle. They are under heightened stress and a chronic low energy state. And that's similar for the adults too. Many of the adults who care for the children are also in a heightened stress state. And in this state, we tend to choose measures that are more immediate and give us a sense of control over the situation. But I really do see that it's helpless. It comes from a place of helplessness sometimes. There's nothing else I can do. And also a lack of maybe knowledge and education, because most parents aren't trained in learning tools to support children that are different from their own upbringing.
Yeah. I think in a lot of these cases, right? I mean, so parents get stressed, like if let's take the homework situation, right? Parents get stressed because the teacher then tells the parent, your child hasn't done homework or your child hasn't done something. So there's this accountability, there's this shame that kind of takes you back to, oh, I've done something wrong and I need to correct it somehow, and I can't correct myself, so I need to do something quickly. And the teachers have the same thing, because they feel that the parents turn around and say, well, you're the teacher, you're supposed to be fixing this, right? And so there's this constant blame game and shame game that then it puts everyone into this whole stress thing. So let me just define corporal punishment. What is that? When you say corporal punishment, what does that look like?
I think corporal punishment takes a few forms. I think in Singapore we're used to slapping, hitting. Caning is probably quite a uniquely Singapore thing, perhaps.
Malaysian also.
Malaysian as well, East Asian maybe. Yes. So caning's still popular, but there are other forms, right? I've had parents get really creative, kneel in the cupboard. I'll put chili in your mouth if you get the next question wrong. Right? Soap in your mouth, push-ups, that sort of thing, right? All these fall under the banner of corporal punishment.
Okay.
Yeah.
It reminded me of the Singapore Children's Society and Yale NUS study in 2022, where they studied groups of families about physical punishment. And about 50% of them used physical punishment on their children, mostly the young ones. As they grow older, it becomes less, but there's still verbal punishment, maybe scolding, shaming, nagging, withdrawing privileges. So it's still very alive that parents just resort to what was done before, what's familiar, what's quick and easy, versus working on the relationship.
So more people felt we're doing it than people who felt it was acceptable. So that speaks to our original point of people are doing it out of frustration, maybe. Because
And also they don't know any other way?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, they don't know any other way.
Sure.
And is corporal punishment, and this is for you, corporal punishment, verbal abuse, all of the kind of those, the flippant words that we say, why he's so stupid, this also you cannot get, just this, it's stuff that it's just rolls off the tongue, right?
Yeah.
Are these things as damaging as domestic abuse or domestic violence?
So the interesting thing is we think of them as separate things. Maybe we do, but the research shows that they're all, very much integrated. In a home where you have a lot of corporal punishment, you have parents who are probably quite dysregulated. Incidentally, 80% of child abuse cases start with corporal punishment going bad. I'm meant to discipline and then I get carried away, right? So often the parents are dysregulated in that home. And so if the children are getting punished themselves, what is corporal punishment? It's fear, it's intimidation, it's humiliation, it's degradation. Pull your pants down, I'm going to whack. It's degradation, it's humiliation. It is a negating of the self. And then if you say, well, that same environment, you have violence towards a partner, so domestic violence, the convention is male on female, then the child is witnessing that my mother is not safe, right? I'm already not safe. Now my mother is not safe. I'm even more not safe. And then if you add emotional abuse to that, you're so stupid, what's wrong with you? Like, this is what cannot. You add that on top of that, what you're doing is sort of degrading the sense of safety in general. Now we all know we need safety to learn. Right? We can get into
it's
that
your
later.
basic
We need
Maslow.
safety. Yeah. Maslow. We need safety to be social. We need a sense of safety to say, Mom, I don't understand. Can you explain? You need a sense of safety for so many things. And so it doesn't matter whether it's just corporal punishment or if it's emotional abuse or it's watching domestic violence. They have the same effects, which we can get into a little bit more.
Okay, let's go into that, right? What happens to children? I mean, like you talk about all of those things that happen. What is the neurobiological effect on a child, for example, when they're on the receiving end of this kind of violence?
So what happens is, you think of like a deer on the savannah, right? He's just walking along. Suddenly he sees a tiger. And his whole system goes into fight or flight. And he's, prowled and, he's ready to either run and get away, or, if he can't, he's going to give the tiger the biggest kick he can. So it's fight or flight, right? Whatever he can do in a desperate measure. Unfortunately, when the parent is the one doing the hitting, the beating, the yelling, the parent becomes the tiger, the lion. And the effects on the brain are really, really quite astonishing. You will start to see like there's huge cortisol spikes. You'll see all the hormones come out. But when they're in this state again and again and again, after a while, you see changes to the HPA axis. You see that their prefrontal cortex, which is this part of the brain that is the most evolved part that teaches us organization, planning, self-control, that actually is shrunk. So you actually see reduced gray matter in that part of the brain in children who have these experiences. So much so that even if the child was not hyperactive before, even though the child was not, impulsive or biting before, if you beat a child before age 3 or 4, they're more likely to be hyperactive, they're more likely to have learning difficulties, they're more likely to have cognitive challenges because you've messed up the developmental trajectory. I might be overstating a little bit, but you're basically interfering with the developmental trajectory of the amygdala and the
But it's not just the beating, right? It's also shouting. It's also the yelling. It's the loud. Sophia and Liling, you guys deal with this when you do workshops with parents and children. What do you see from an emotional side of things? Like, what do children, I don't know, what do parents tell you? What do you see in the children when you're working with them, if you do?
When we're in the positive discipline workshops that we do, we always see children fall into like 4 categories when they're being punished. And we see this in real life. So like resentment, revenge, rebellion, and retreat. So we have resentment. You say, you're not allowed to hit while you're hitting the child. So that gives off some confusion to the child. Like, am I supposed to hit or am I not while I'm being hit? Right? And you don't feel that connection to your parent. You're confused whether they love you or not. And so it affects yourself. And then you have the rebellion. They just don't care what adults do or say. I'm just going to do whatever I want. And then we have the revenge. And this is where the hurt children cycle falls into, wherein I feel so hurt. I want other people to feel my hurt because I don't want to be alone in my hurt. So if they cannot hurt the adults, who did they hurt? Their peers, their friends. So they want somebody else to be in the hurt with them. And then we have retreat, which I think most of us fall under, wherein we mask, we people please. Like, okay, I'm just going to do whatever you want so that you will love me.
Or leave me alone.
Or I could just hide things from you. I could lie so that you won't punish me. It's a sense of safety. Like, do our kids feel safe with us to tell us the truth? So it always comes back to the sense of safety and belonging in the family or in school or in communities.
And socially, I mean, how does that play out socially? Other than bullying other children, what else do we see? Like fighting, I guess, I'm assuming?
For children to want to choose pro-social behaviors, they really have to be in the place of their brain where the prefrontal cortex is engaged. An analogy is the blue brain, red brain, and the brown brain. So the blue brain is the prefrontal cortex, and the red brain is the emotional brain. It's overly simplified, but it helps parents to understand. And the brown brain is the limbic brain. So the limbic brain is the fight-flight brain, right? The one that is in survival mode. And if children are in the limbic brain or in their emotional brain, it's really hard for them to exercise the cognitive functions that are higher order functions, like problem solving, empathy, compassion, organization. So I like to get parents to think about, choose how we punish the child or discipline the child. Does the method actually support the child in regulating and returning to equilibrium? Because if they are in their emotional, their red and brown brain, how do we support them to come back to the place where the blue brain is back online? If our method of discipline actually pushes them further into the limbic brain, then are we actually escalating the child, or are we regulating with the child?
That's right. And so with the evidence in corporal punishment, there have been many, many studies. When there was a meta-analysis of 195 studies done by NYU, and the evidence is quite overwhelming that children who were caned regularly, or not caned, I think they were looking at spanking and physical forms of punishment, are more likely to be aggressive. So the girls have internalizing behaviors, which means anxiety, watching, when am I going to get into trouble, right? Nobody likes me. There's something wrong with me. Everyone's always punishing me. And then with the boys, it's externalizing behaviors, which is, like you say, the reactive. This is how I feel. I'm going to show you how I feel. And so it was externalizing aggression. So aggression is quite across all the studies, that's a constant. So we're creating.
So I'm going to be really pedantic now, because these are the arguments that we all hear, okay? I don't cane all the time lah. Right? I have patience, and then I try and be patient. And then, when I've said so many times, and then one time lah, isn't that okay? Do you know what I mean? So, but this is the kind of reactions that we do get. I don't cane all the time. I don't shout all the time. What do you say to that? Is one time bad enough? Is 3 times just really awful compared to the daily? Amrit, what you talked about, being hit, being shouted at, but also witnessing a parent being abused. That is at this extreme. I think we can all agree on that. So is there, I don't know, a less extreme scale that we can say, okay lah, it's not so bad? Or what? What are we saying?
I don't know of any research that looks at occasional corporal punishment versus, frequent. A lot of the studies, they look at least once in 2 weeks or once a month, right? But if it's really occasional, what comes to mind is this idea in psychology of good enough parenting.
Yeah. I think the point is it becomes a habit, right? Because
Yeah.
you do it once and then you maybe see a result. Or like, I think when we were talking earlier, you said it tends to escalate because you try one time.
Oh yeah, parents feel like they have to intensify the level of the punishment. If current level isn't working, it means that in order for me to teach you, I have to choose a more intense level of punishment. I think Sophia and I both have a lot of compassion for parents. Chapter 0, the work that we do with Chapter 0, we actually have a very soft lens for parents because we know the stress that parents are under. And so we don't think of it as like, oh yeah, it's okay to cane once or like shout occasionally, a certain percentage is fine. It's more like we want to support parents in understanding why do I go there? Because they feel a lot of guilt after also. Many parents feel a lot of guilt after. And they actually want to break this cycle. Just that they don't know how. They don't understand why. Why do I get to these places where I look back with some regret on the way I spoke to my child or the way I acted towards my child. So we have a lot of compassion for parents. We want them to also see themselves with this soft lens, just as your child might choose behaviors that are unacceptable when they are under overwhelming stress. So do adults. So can we have enough self-awareness to see what are our stresses? What is causing us to escalate to the point where we are in our fight-flight state when we discipline the child?
Okay, so this is all about parents, right? And we know all of this research that's out there. So then I'm going to be bold and talk about the recent review that MOE did about the slew of measures that happen when things occur in a school and you're trying to teach better behavior or how to make better choices. And they retained corporal punishment in this slew of review. The assumption is that they have access to these studies. And I mean, this is not, sure, it's not Singapore based, but it's global. And there are several studies that say the same thing. So why? How?
I can't answer why, but there are studies that are based in East Asian countries, and they show the same thing as the international studies, right? Aggression, internalizing, externalizing, all those things are similar across cultures. That much we know. And we also know that caning causes aggression. So that's, that's really concerning that we're now using aggression to foster further aggression, right? And then if you think of restorative justice paradigms, which I will let you guys talk more about, the idea is I cane you and it's punitive versus I make you sit with your victim and empathize, which is sort of the basis of restorative justice protocols. Sit with the victim and think about how it impacted them. Of course, in a safe way, where the victim's safety is assured. There's some measures. There's a lot of research around what they call whole school paradigms. There are studies out of Australia. There's, I think, in the Finnish, if I'm not mistaken, a Kiva study that talk about whole school measures for preventing bullying that are really, really effective. I think the Kiva study was 80% reduction. Don't quote me, I'll have to look it up. But there was a huge, reduction, the percentage of, the number of kids bullying when you introduce measures in school where you're really clear what bullying is, what it looks like, what the teachers will do, how do you remedy if you feel like you've hurt someone. Like when you create a culture in which the victim feels okay talking about it and the aggressor is supported enough to sit and listen to how it impacts them. And it's not an ideal world. It's not, we don't expect rainbows and miracles all the time, but we should be looking at these sort of things rather than going back to what we know from the 1950s.
Yeah, so the reason I brought that up was because obviously when we talk about parents, you're in the moment, right? Your child is arguing, not agreeing with you, not doing what you think they should be doing. And so then, like you say, parents come from a stress place as well. And so it escalates and then it's a spontaneous thing. Whereas when you talk about things that are being done in school, it is, for want of a better word, premeditated, right? Because you plan. You can plan for these things. There is a plan, there is a system in place, etc., etc. So is the system influencing how parents react? Are they reacting because there's a system that's there?
I don't think we're saying that there shouldn't be any disciplines in schools, because there should be like ways that we could connect with children that would engage their safety, engage their brain. And a lot of this, like when I talk to parents, they would say, oh, our school already does restorative practices and it doesn't work. They're still bullying. So it doesn't work. But a lot of times what we find is that restorative practices are done when after the fact that a child got hurt. So it's when there is already a problem that we act and we do these restorative approaches. Right? What we're trying to say here is that how about the proactive measures? How about we do this? The restorative approach is not meant to be just reactive, but there's actually a lot of proactive measures like connecting with the child, building a school community, strengthening the student and teacher relationship that would make them feel safe and that would make them feel that they belong in the school community. And that's forgotten a lot of times because we tend to just be reactive when something bad happened, right? And this is also where positive discipline in the classroom falls under, right? That's the foundational approach. You build this class meeting, family meeting where children actually learn how to speak up for themselves, how to do problem solving skills versus, what a lot of children learn from home or from school that, this punitive way is the way we solve problems, which in the workplace wouldn't, it's not. We have to be able to express ourselves in a way that the person understands our point of view, and I try to understand your point of view. So if you lack this foundational skills in school or at home, then it's a lot more reactive.
So what do you say to the argument that these measures are to instill that discipline, instill that resilience so that they can sit down and talk?
I think I would say, to her point and yours, we're modeling. The schools are saying this is what we do, and therefore the message to the parents out there is, you can do this too, right? So I think that's slightly problematic. And what are we doing? We're modeling, right? We're modeling that when we're upset with your behavior, it's okay to hurt. And we know that people who have been hurt as children in these ways are more likely to enter into abusive relationships. Like that is really worrying to me. So if you come from a home where it's okay to hit, and now we're saying it's okay in schools to hit, I think that causes some caution to me.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about this whole school approach. What does that look like?
For me, I think it's creating a safe haven in school and at home, really. And what that means to me when I do workshops for parents, when I talk about creating safe havens, what that means to me is seeing children with a lens of what's happening with their regulation. And I kind of want to circle back to the point of why are we choosing caning? It's related. Why are we choosing caning for bullying behaviors? I think it's, when children are stuck in a stress cycle, they maybe have maladaptive coping mechanisms. And they come in all forms. Some children have bullying behaviors as a maladaptive coping mechanism. Some children hurt themselves, harm themselves, they cut themselves. Some have depression, anxiety. Some have gaming addictions or addictions to substances. It's easier for adults to see these set of maladaptive coping mechanisms with compassion because the harm is to the child themselves. So we are desperate about, how do we help the child to get out of these maladaptive coping mechanisms? But when it becomes bullying behaviors, because the harm is externalized to other children around them, we feel this need to jump in and to use corrective measures for justice and to fix. And that's why I think schools have chosen the new system of caning as a
new system. It's been there.
It's been there.
It's been reiterated.
Yes, when I was teaching, I actually witnessed public caning at assembly. And it was really hard on me. I cannot imagine how it was for the students to watch that and for the child who was receiving the caning on stage. Why we are choosing caning, it comes from a place of, needing to say that we're doing something about this.
But it's also to show power, right?
Yeah.
It's humiliation, right?
But if we can see the child as actually being very challenged, not willfully choosing to hurt other people, but similar to other children who are harming themselves, this child is actually choosing maladaptive coping mechanisms because they are stuck in the stress cycle, then we can perhaps find ways to support the child in a more compassionate manner. Yeah, because we know that the caning only adds to the stress, only puts them more in their survival brain.
Yep.
So if I can take this discussion back to my favorite topic, which is emotion regulation.
Yep.
Right? Emotion regulation in us as the parents. Emotion regulation.
Or teacher.
And a teacher.
I think parents get a lot of bad rep. Teacher also.
Teachers do. Emotion regulation as a skill that needs to be learnt by us and a skill that we have to teach our children. I think that is sorely lacking. If I had a magic wand, that's what I'd be wishing for, that we teach emotion regulation for us and we teach emotion regulation for children. And it's not that complicated. It's teaching a child to say, you look really angry. Right? What does that feel like in your body? I've got a volcano on my tummy, it's going to explode. Right? These are the kind of things kids say to me. Why do you think the volcano is so angry right now? Why is it going to, this person said, oh, or whatever. What do you feel like doing? I feel punching them. I feel like this, I feel like that, right? What do you think? You know, is that a good idea? Probably not. When they're calmer, they might say probably not. What can we do instead? And sort of giving the child a mechanism to understand what's happening in my body. I'm in fight or flight. To have a child understand fight or flight is not that complicated. We do it all the time. To have a parent understand, when I come back from work stressed, the dishes are there, the kids haven't done their homework, my state is not going to be good. I need to regulate. What does that look like before I sit with my children? Teachers need to regulate. So that comes back to my other favorite topic, why we should have class sizes of 20.
Thank you. I was waiting for somebody to say that.
Because if you imagine a poor kid whose parents are stressed and unavailable, and then you go to school and you're one of 40, what are we doing to our mental health statistics that we're supposed to be so worried about? Where is the support? Where is the safety net? The teachers have huge capacity to be the safety net if they weren't trying to
manage 39 other children.
39 children and meet, PSLE math standards, and all that comes with it. The role of a teacher is an alternative source of support in the family, and we're not thinking of them that way. We see them in the industrial model where you go and you have 40 kids and you make sure the math lesson is taught, and that's your role, right?
Yeah.
And all right, I could go on, but I won't.
So what do we, but then this was like how it was when we were at school as well, right? And what do we say to the comment that I turned out all right? I also was caned. Did we? I was caned, I was scolded, I was yelled at, I was punished, all of that, right? We constantly get that. Why change today? Why the urgency to change?
Hurt children. That's the topic today, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about. We're talking about breaking the cycle of violence. Breaking the cycle of, children who feel like they're not good enough because that's what they got all the time, is, violence. Breaking the cycle of people thinking it was done to me and therefore it's done, I can do it to my children. Having them have actual other tools that are far more supported by the research than caning.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's a lot of it comes to building skills, right? So when we're punished as a child, this is what we know. And sometimes we don't know other ways, so we do it. And it's what happened when my two older children are younger, 9 and 4. And then I saw the result of, like controlled spanking, controlled punishment, but actually it's hard to control, like it just comes out of me. I saw some signs of discouragement. Why try when I cannot be perfect? Why do I need to do that when it's just going to be wrong? And it hurt me as a parent. I wanted to be better for my children. And I didn't know back then that there's another way. So I think a lot of awareness is key. And that's what EveryChild is doing. Chapter 0 is also doing. It's just build this awareness of the patterns that keeps on repeating. The patterns of what grandparents brought to our parents and our parents brought to us. When we recognize that pattern, then we could realize where to stop it. Does it start from us? Do we punish where the behavior stops momentarily? Yes, it does stop momentarily, right. But does it build long-term skills for them to do the right thing even when nobody's watching, even when the cane is not present, even when there's no adults? They would still do the right thing because they have rebuilt that skills earlier on in their childhood.
I wanted to say that we talked about controlled spanking, where it's measured, where it's calm. You misbehave now, but we wait till daddy comes home because daddy is not as riled up as I am, right?
There was even a series, wait till your father comes home.
Was it? Yes. And unfortunately, again, the research doesn't support it. It doesn't matter if it was controlled. It doesn't matter if it was benevolent. It doesn't matter if it was calm. Corporal punishment is corporal punishment. Pain is pain.
I think the question of like why change things if we always did things this way, we actually, when we see parents and educators at our workshops, they come thinking they're learning about how to support a child's emotional regulation. And we often see this aha moment in their eyes and their brains, you can see the gears like churning, and the aha moment that they get is, oh, that's why I'm like that.
Yeah.
This is me. Now I understand why I flip the lid, why I lose my temper and my patience. I share this analogy at workshops of stresses being like rocks in our invisible backpack. And we are all carrying an invisible backpack. And then every stressor that we experience adds a load in our invisible backpack. And instead of learning how, many of us are not taught how to lighten this load in our invisible backpack with methods that are healthy. So instead of doing that, we end up throwing these rocks at other people around us. And so we lose our temper at home, we shout at our family members, or we even lose our temper maybe at workplaces, some people. And they're throwing these rocks at their colleagues, right? And for children who have a very heavy backpack, are they throwing rocks at their classmates? Because they don't know any other way to lighten the load in their emotional backpack, or there's no adult supporting them to lighten the load in their emotional backpack. I really think it's so helpful for adults to learn, not just for children to learn emotional regulation, but for adults to learn, how do I regulate my own stresses, my emotions, my nervous system, so that I can choose methods to lighten my stress load that are healthy for me and my family and my friends, instead of choose methods that are unhealthy, and continue to choose these unhealthy methods that add to everybody's backpack.
Yeah. So let's lean into that a bit more. Okay. So what are the ways? What can a caregiver do when they feel this bubbling in the tummy, right? This volcano in your tummy, or in your head's about to explode? What can they do?
I think it starts not in that moment, right? I think that you may fail a few times before you get to the point where you get this, but you will benefit from the reflection every time. So if I lost my temper this morning, which I didn't, but I have. Right? So if I lost my temper this morning, then reflection. What was going on for me? What was I carrying? I love the backpack analogy. I'm going to use it. Right? What was I carrying? What was I bringing to the table? What was sending my temperature up that I was not regulating? And what was happening for my child? Why was it so hard to put on the freaking shoes and get out?
We have the same child. I swear. We have the same child.
And then it's a reflection on, okay, what was going on? Did she get enough sleep? Did I get enough sleep? What was on my mind? I was really thinking that this child is out of control and I want to fix her because I've got all these other things I want to do. And maybe I need to slow down on the fixing. Maybe this might take longer. Whatever the thing may be, is reflection, and compassion. Like you said, kindness, soft lens towards the parent. If I'm punitive with myself, you're going to be a perfect parent tomorrow. Good luck.
Yeah.
Right? So compassion. Compassion with the child, compassion with yourself. I messed up again. What were the elements? I'm going to breathe, and I'm going to take 10 minutes before I enter the room and be with my children after work. So I've had 10 minutes of me time, and it brings my attention levels from 80 to 50, and I'm a much better parent when I'm at 50 than when I'm at 80. It's so many parts of this conversation. Part of the conversation is societal stresses, the cost of living, how hard it is to, manage childcare and work. It's not all on us, unfortunately. We live in a society that unfortunately propagate some of these pressures, and maybe our low birth rate reflects some of these pressures.
And what you said, the reflection and repair can only come with a regulated brain, right?
That's right.
But in the moment, it's quite hard to get in touch with our thinking brain.
Yes.
I love this acronym STOP, S-T-O-P, during the moment, wherein you stop whatever you're doing, whether you're with a child, whatever you're doing, just stop. Take 3 regulating breaths. So that means like deep breaths, which slows down our heart rate, regulates down our system, right? And then observe. And this is where the feelings and needs come in, right? Observe am I needing something? Am I hungry? Sometimes the hunger brings
Makes
about
you hangry.
anger, right? So like observing, what am I needing, or what is the child needing in front of me? And that deep breaths that came before that actually helps you get in touch with your thinking brain, right? Observing the needs, observing the feelings that comes up, observing my own feelings. Like there's a lot of things going on, a lot of like everyday living stress that we're living through. And then P, so S is the stop, T, take 3 deep breaths or more. Observe what is our body needing, our feelings and needs, and what the child is needing, their feelings and needs, and then proceed. So what course of action can actually help build the skill that this child need, or do I need to excuse myself? And a lot of it goes back to what are we feeling in our body, because we tend to forget about our bodies, and the feelings and the trauma get stuck in it. You know, so for me, it's like, do I need to shake my body? Do I need to like jump around? Do I need a splash of cold water? So those things are regulating for a lot of parents. Yeah.
Yes, to jump on that, the idea is that when you take those deep breaths, you're literally taking yourself out of fight or flight state. Most of the violence that we know of in the world is not premeditated, right?
Yeah,
most of violence is impulsive. It's in the moment. And it comes from the state of, I'm not safe. Fight or flight, whether I'm aware of it or not, there's a lack of safety in myself. I feel overwhelmed. I can't cope. This is not going well. That tension building puts you in the fight or flight state, and the very act of breathing disables the fight or flight state, reactivates the prefrontal cortex, gets you into the what's going on rather than right? It's a whole different mode. And so the breathing is so, and if that's not enough, I love that you said go wash your face, go step away, right? But a lot of the time the breathing is enough. Right?
Maybe I'll add a little bit more to what Sophia and Amrit already beautifully talked about. Is that actually a lot of times parents, maybe they learned this somewhere, they read this somewhere, they heard this somewhere, and then they try to do this, and still the situation escalates, and then they lose it, right?
So it's not working.
It's not working. This STOP thing is not working for me, you know? And so I think like what Amrit said, there's no quick fix, really. It has to be a continuous, ongoing process of trying in the moment to regulate yourself and the child, and then outside of the moment, reflecting on what led up to that state, that situation in the first place. What are our stresses, my stresses, the child's stresses? What can I actively do to reduce these stresses in our lives? So recognizing the stresses, reducing the stresses, and then finding tools to restore outside of the moment. How do we restore and find regulating tools, you know, that work for both of us? Or are we choosing methods that are, you know, sedating us, but not actually regulating us, like, you know, watching Netflix and eating chocolate, which I do all the time. But sometimes I recognize that it's really a tool to distract myself, but may not actually regulate me because I'm adding to my tiredness. And then the next day I'm back in this cycle. So choosing tools that really support our regulation and returning to equilibrium. Is it playing something calming together with the child? Is it dance parties, music, walks in nature, enjoying meals together, calm meals together at home?
I'm going to add to that. I think one thing when I've worked with children recently, I've had to tell the parents, of course, I'm not advocating hitting, but their problems, right? Their behavioral problems, their emotion regulation problems. And you give them the tools. This is how you react. This is how you explain the child's emotions to them. And I always have to put this caveat. It's not going to work overnight. It's not going to work today. It's not going to work tomorrow. You're going to feel like you're like you're just repeating yourself constantly. But one fine day, I promise, you'll be a nag. That's the word. One fine day, it will sink in, right? So some children are just really born quite emotionally unregulated. They're a bit more extreme in their emotions, right? They're just, kids are born different. And if you give that child skills of emotional understanding, that child can become, I've seen this several times, become the most emotionally aware, intelligent person on the planet who's regulating other people. Because they had the right input, right? But it didn't happen in that week or that month. Right? So the child may not get the shoes out and on and out at 8, but they probably will at 10. So have some, grace for yourself, have some grace for them. A lot of it is developmental. A lot of the problems you're having are going to be developmental. We don't even realize they're just not quite there yet.
Yeah. This reminded me of my daughter. She's almost 15. Her friends tend to go to her for emotional support. And I think there's a lot of practice at home as well, because I love role plays. I do love role plays because you get to practice when you're in a regulated point, you're a regulated state, right? So you tend to remember when you're at the moment, then you tend to remember, oh, what did we do? So even with my teen, we role play, and it's not okay, you act like this, act like that, Yes, maybe for my younger son, it could work, but with teens, it's like the what if situation. So what if your friend said this? How would that make you feel? Or how would you respond to that? So all these what ifs, just enough, not the 1 hour of what ifs, right? So these tiny conversations that we have throughout of social interaction, of maybe, emotional dysregulation outside of home, or what if a teacher did this and it's really like triggered you or make your volcano erupt, right? So what can you do? So building up the skills is very important so that they could have something to fall back on when they're in that moment. Yes.
So I can add to that. Sorry. The idea is you have an explosion, right? You have a little falling out. You have, mom might overreact or dad might overreact. There's a little bit of a tiff. And then in that moment, you slam doors and everybody goes to work or goes to school or whatever. And then the coming back at the end of the day doesn't mean even be that day. It might be 3 days later when you get a chance. You're both sitting on the couch. That was a hard day. You're holding your child or you're just chatting. That was really hard. I'm sorry. What was going on for me? I think this was going on for you, but what do you remember? And, if you can't regulate in the moment, it's a chance to reflect. Right? When you're in a calmer state, and that builds the skills every time.
Which brings us back to what you said about good enough parenting, right? It's not about being perfect parents. There are going to be ruptures. There will be. Because we're all human. But it's what we do after the ruptures. Do we take time to repair?
A friend recently said that, the difference between me and my parents is that I actually say sorry. And I'm like, that's not bad.
It's a start.
It's great.
I like the way you said not so long, because I go into lecture mode and I can see my kids just switch off, right? Their eyes are open and they're facing me, but they just switch off. And I'm like, oh, lecture mode. Okay, I'll stop. I think what all of you have said is very valuable, but I'm going to give you a practical, simple situation. It's not about the shoes, but it's about the homework, right? So I think a lot of parenting and a lot of teacher caregiving is around this high performance, high pressure, need to get through this point in time that then seems to feel like this. It's like a bottleneck, right? If you get out of it, it's like Coke. Once you get out of it, you're fine, right? So let's just say there is a child that just doesn't want to do their homework. And you say, you have to do homework because teacher gave you homework. Then they're like, Doan, I don't know homework. It's boring. And it just keeps going. What do?
Now we have the same child. Yeah, so homework refusal is really frustrating. And it's frustrating for the child as well, right? What I hear is that, what would I use this for?
Yeah.
Like, would I be able to use this as an adult, right? So a lot of it is, again, skills. When I lost my cool this morning also because of that, right? We got to the bottom of it once we felt more regulated. And I was able to learn that the topic that they're currently in was hard. He didn't quite understand it. He wanted to do something else that would be better in his mind, right? So getting underneath that behavior of, homework refusal, what's really going underneath? Maybe it's lack of skill that he needed more support on. So once I was able to figure out what that is, I sent an email to the teacher on how we could work together, the school and home, how we could work together to support my child into understanding what he couldn't grasp at that moment. So really, it's the open communication between the teacher and I, and also with my child.
You have a nice teacher.
I'm going to say something controversial here, and I'm sure many people would disagree with me, and that's fine. But we also have to think, right? Developmentally, what's the role of a child? What is their primary preoccupation?
Play.
Exactly.
And spending time with their folks, with their parents.
Spending time with the parents, right? Not like my teenager who's, got better things to do, right? So there is that small window where focus really has to be play, and they're screaming for it. That's what the protest might actually be, right? I've spent all day at school. Now you want me to do this. I've had it. And we have to acknowledge that we've built a system together, for better or worse, that takes away from play because we create pressures at 12 with the PSLE, another talking point.
I promised I wouldn't go there today. But it does come up. I mean, it is where we're
part
at.
of it.
It is part of it.
And so if a child is protesting at 7, at 8, at 9, at 10, at 11, maybe they should be. Maybe we need to try and find a balance. And then you'll say, well, but it's Singapore and there are all these consequences. And unfortunately, I don't have the answer for that. All I know is people with money send their kids to private school.
Yeah, but that's the basic tenet of what every child is trying to do, right?
Yeah, to make it good for every child, right?
So I guess what we're saying is, if the child is refusing homework, it's really trying to understand the reason behind the refusal with like curiosity and compassion. Like, what is it actually you're needing when you say no to homework? Is it play? Is it movement? Is it like support because there is a knowledge gap? Yeah, what is the child needing? Yeah, and then finding ways to together with the child to meet those needs, and then also bring play homework into the picture. Like, okay, let's meet these needs that you have, and what do you think we can do about the homework?
All right, so if you had the opportunity and you were given the opportunity to restructure the measures in school, what's one thing that you would suggest?
I would suggest looking into proactive measures more than reactive measures, because when you build that right foundation of relationship and connection, sense of safety and belonging in the school, then there's less need for caning, less need for reactive measures.
And I'm going to ask you a follow-up. How would you do that in big classes?
That's the thing. So then I really love looking at the EveryChild.SG 10-year plan, where there's less students in the classroom, right? So there's more focus on each child, where really every child could be seen as a person contributing to the school community.
For me, I think I've mentioned it. It's how to help schools to be safe havens for not just the students, but for the teachers, the principals, the school leaders. How can schools be safe havens for everybody that's in it? And I think that requires commitment from the school or the system to say, okay, let's support everybody in understanding emotional regulation, what's happening in the brain, so that then we can actively make choices, intentional choices in our school practices that supports the brain and the nervous system. And not make people swim against the current.
I think we as a society need to be talking about emotional regulation, all right? For the parents, for the teachers, for the children. And it's not hard to build that into curricula.
Yes.
It's been done internationally.
Yeah, it should be part of school curriculum. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, all of you, for coming and sitting with me and talking about something that is quite distressing and quite difficult, but necessary. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you find these conversations valuable, please like the video, subscribe and follow us so you may never miss an episode. So grab a copy and let's talk about what matters.